Mm. My daughter-in-law smiled at me the morning everything changed. It was the kind of smile I had learned to distrust, too wide, too certain, like she already knew something I didn't. I smiled back. I had learned a few things too, but I am getting ahead of myself. Let me start where it actually begins. My name is Eleanor. I am 69 years old and I have lived in the same house in Dayton, Ohio for 31 years. My late husband Gerald and I bought it the year our son was born. 3 bedrooms, a wide front porch, a backyard with 2 oak trees he planted himself. When Gerald passed 4 years ago, I kept the house. Some of my friends thought I should downsize, move somewhere easier to maintain, they said. Somewhere with less memory in the walls, but I couldn't. Every room in that house was Gerald. The scuff on the kitchen baseboard where he moved the refrigerator wrong, the crooked towel hook in the guest bathroom he always meant to fix. I wasn't ready to leave any of that behind, so I stayed, and for 2 years I was perfectly fine on my own. Then my son called. He told me his wife, I will call her my daughter-in-law throughout this, because that is what she was, had just been laid off from her job at the marketing firm. He was working construction at the time, good steady work, but not enough to cover their rent on the apartment across town and keep up with everything else. They had a baby on the way. 7 months along, he asked if they could stay with me for a little while, just until she found new work and they got back on their feet. I want to be honest here, because I think honesty is the only thing that makes a story worth telling. My first feeling was not entirely joy. I knew my daughter-in-law. She was not an easy person. Even at holiday dinners, even at birthday celebrations, there was always a sharpness to her that I couldn't quite name. She corrected people in public. She kept score of things most people let go. She had a way of walking into a room and rearranging it, not the furniture, but the air, the sense of who belonged there. But she was carrying my grandchild, and my son was asking for help, so I said yes. They moved in on a Saturday in March. My son carried boxes, apologized for the clutter, brought me flowers from the grocery store. My daughter-in-law walked through the house with her hand on her belly, looking at each room the way a person looks at something they are deciding whether to keep. She said the guest room was small. I agreed that it was. She said the bathroom off the hallway smelled like old pipes. I said I would call someone to look at it. She said the kitchen lighting was depressing. I bought a new lamp. Looking back, I understand now that I was already doing what I would spend the next 3 years doing. Adjusting, accommodating, making the house more comfortable for people who never once asked how comfortable I was. The baby came in May. A little girl. Beautiful, round-cheeked, with her father's eyes and her mother's stubborn chin. The moment I held her, every complicated feeling I had about the arrangement dissolved. I was a grandmother. That part was uncomplicated and entirely good, but the rest of it was not. By the time their daughter was 6 months old, my daughter-in-law had not gone back to work. She told my son she wanted to wait until the baby was a year old. He agreed. I said nothing. By the time the baby was a year old, my daughter-in-law said the job market was terrible and she needed more time. My son said, of course. I said nothing. By then they had claimed the house in small ways I kept telling myself didn't matter. Her skincare products covered the bathroom shelf where I used to keep my things. A television appeared in the living room, a large one, replacing the modest set I'd had for years. My coffee maker was moved to a cabinet to make room for an espresso machine. Neither of them offered to explain. I started finding my own belongings shifted. A chair moved, a painting taken down, a small shelf of my books replaced with a row of decorative objects I did not choose and did not like. When I mentioned any of it, my daughter-in-law would look at me with patient, deliberate eyes and say something like, "We're just trying to make it livable, Eleanor." Not Mom, not even the warmer version of my name that suggested affection. Eleanor. Like I was a landlord, she was tolerating. My son was not a bad person. I want to make that clear. He was tired, working long hours, trying to keep everyone happy, and in doing so, he kept no one happy at all. When I tried to talk to him privately, he would listen, nod, say he would handle it, and then handle nothing. I think he was afraid of her. Not afraid in a dramatic way. Afraid in the way that people are afraid of disrupting the one thing that feels stable, even when the stability is built on something wrong. I thought about asking them to leave many times. The reason I did not, and I think this matters, is that by the end of the first year, I had watched my son become a father in a way that moved me deeply. He was present, patient, warm with his daughter in a way I had not known he was capable of. If I asked them to leave, he would leave too, and I would lose that. The dinners where I watched him read to her, the weekend mornings when he brought her to me in the kitchen and we made pancakes and she laughed at everything, I was not ready to give that up for my own comfort, so I stayed quiet. And the years passed. 1 became 2, 2 became 3. Then one Tuesday afternoon in October, everything changed. I was in the backyard pulling dead growth from the flower beds when my son came through the back door. He was holding his phone with both hands, which is not how people hold phones when they are reading something ordinary. His face was the color of a person who has just been told something so large they haven't decided yet whether it is good or terrible. I stood up. I said, "What happened?" He looked at me and said, "Mom, we won." I did not understand immediately. I asked what he meant. He said his wife had been buying scratch tickets at the gas station for years, every Friday, the same spot on Wilmington Pike. The week before, she had bought a ticket that turned out to be a $600 winner. She used the $600 to buy more tickets. One of those tickets, and here his voice broke slightly, not from sadness but from the sheer weight of it. One of those tickets had just been confirmed by the State Lottery Commission. Their winnings were $4.2 million after a drawing she had entered online through the ticket's Second Chance feature. $4.2 million. I set down my gardening gloves. I said, "That's wonderful," and I meant it, or at least I thought I did. I hugged my son. I was glad for him. I was glad for my granddaughter. What I did not know, standing in that backyard with dirt on my knees, was that the winning ticket had not been bought by my daughter-in-law. It had been bought by me. Let me explain, because I know how that sounds. Every Friday, for 11 years, I had driven to the same BP station on Wilmington Pike and bought 2 scratch tickets. One for me, one as a small ritual I'd kept since Gerald was alive. He liked the gold and green ones, the holiday series. I scratched mine in the car. The second one I usually tucked in my purse without scratching, because Gerald used to say, "The longer you wait, the longer you have hope." Silly, I know, but grief makes you keep small things. The previous Friday, I had been in a hurry. I bought my 2 tickets, put them both in my purse without scratching either, and forgot about them entirely. Then my daughter-in-law had needed cash for a delivery, come into my purse while I was napping. She had done this before, I had said nothing about it, and taken a 20. She must have found the unscratched tickets as well, because later that same day, she came and told me she had won $600 on a scratch ticket she bought at the gas station. I had not connected it. Why would I? I had simply forgotten about my own tickets. I am 69 years old, and I had a dentist appointment and a leaking faucet and a granddaughter who had started walking, and I forgot. But here is what I had not forgotten. I keep every receipt. Gerald was an accountant. He made receipts, a religion in our household. I have a small accordion folder in the kitchen drawer where I put every gas station receipt, every pharmacy receipt, every grocery store slip. I have done this for 30 years. My daughter-in-law knew about the folder. She had laughed at it once, called it old-fashioned. What she did not know was what it contained, the receipt from the BP station on Wilmington Pike. That Friday, 2 scratch tickets, 2047 in the afternoon, my debit card ending in 4401. I did not go looking for it immediately. I went back inside, made dinner, watched my son call his friends. I watched my daughter-in-law on her phone, already looking at houses. I fed my granddaughter her evening bottle. I thought carefully. That night, after everyone was asleep, I went to the kitchen drawer. I found the receipt in under a minute. I sat at the kitchen table with it, and with the 2 unscratched tickets I had just found, still in my purse exactly where I left them. My daughter-in-law had taken one. One was still there, unscratched. I did not scratch it that night. I put everything in an envelope, and I put the envelope in the lockbox in my closet, where I keep my deed, my will, and Gerald's death certificate. Then I called my neighbor Dorothy, who had been my closest friend for 19 years, and I asked her to meet me for coffee in the morning. Dorothy is 72, a retired paralegal, and the most clear-headed person I know. I told her everything. She listened without interrupting, which is a rare quality in anyone. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Eleanor, do you have the receipt?" I said I did. She said, "Do you have the second ticket? Still unscratched?" I said I did. She said, "Then you need a lawyer today, not tomorrow, today." She gave me the name of an attorney she trusted, a woman named Patricia who had handled property cases for 30 years. I called that morning. Patricia saw me that afternoon. I brought the receipt, the unscratched ticket, and my bank statement showing the debit transaction. Patricia looked at everything for a long time. Then she looked at me and said, "This is straightforward. The ticket was purchased with your funds from your account, and you have the receipt to prove it. The second chance entry your daughter-in-law made online, that can be contested because the underlying ticket was not hers to enter. She told me not to say anything to my son or daughter-in-law yet. She said to let the process move through the right channels first. She filed the necessary paperwork with the State Lottery Commission that same week. I went home and said nothing. I made dinner. I watched my daughter-in-law on her laptop looking at houses in the suburbs. I read to my granddaughter before bed. My son asked if I was feeling all right. I said I was a little tired. He nodded and went back to his phone. 4 days later, my daughter-in-law called a family meeting. That is what she called it, a family meeting, at the kitchen table. My own kitchen table, in my own kitchen, in the house Gerald and I bought 31 years ago. She sat across from me with her hands folded and told me that she and my son had been talking and they felt it was time for them to move forward into their next chapter. She said they had found a house they loved, a 4-bedroom colonial in Centerville, and they were planning to put down a deposit by the end of the month. She said they were grateful for everything I had done, housing them for 3 years, helping with their daughter, being supportive. Then she said that they had also been thinking about this house. I kept my face very still. She said she knew it was a sensitive subject, but they felt, and she used the word felt, not think, not believe, just felt that it might make more sense for the family overall if I transitioned somewhere more manageable. She mentioned a senior living community in Kettering. "Nice place," she said. "Very clean. Activities and things." I asked her to say plainly what she was suggesting. She said that if I signed the house over to them, they would make sure I was taken care of. They would cover my expenses at Kettering. I wouldn't need to worry about maintenance anymore, or the yard, or any of it. I looked at my son. He was looking at the table. I said, "This is my house. Gerald and I purchased it in 1994. My name is on the deed. There is no version of this conversation in which I am signing it over to anyone." My daughter-in-law looked at me with that patient, deliberate expression. She said they weren't trying to be unkind. They just thought it was the practical thing. I said, "I appreciate your thinking. The answer is no." She shifted. The patience fell away a little. She said that with the lottery money they could take care of things properly now, that they didn't need to stay here anymore, but she wanted to make sure I was taken care of. I said I had been taking care of myself for 69 years and I had no plans to stop. The conversation ended there. She stood up, took her coffee cup to the sink, and left the room. My son looked at me for a moment with something in his face that I think was relief and something else that might have been shame. Then he left too. I sat at that table alone for a while. 3 days after that conversation, Patricia called me. The Lottery Commission had reviewed the documentation. The ticket had been purchased by my debit card. The receipt matched. The second chance online entry had been made using a ticket that I could prove I purchased. The winnings, all $4.2 million of them, were legally mine. She told me the commission would be sending formal notice to my daughter-in-law within the week. I thanked her. I sat in the kitchen after I hung up. I scratched the second ticket, the one still in my purse, the one my daughter-in-law had not taken. It was a $20 winner. I smiled at that. Gerald would have loved that detail. When the notice arrived from the Lottery Commission, the house went very quiet. I was in the living room reading when my daughter-in-law came downstairs holding the letter. She looked at me. I looked at her. I did not say anything dramatic. I did not rehearse anything. I simply told her calmly that I had the receipt, I had my bank statement, and the commission had already made their determination. She said this was unbelievable. I said I found a lot of things unbelievable, and I had found a way to keep going anyway. My son came in. I watched him read the letter. He sat down. He was quiet for a long time. Then he asked me if I had known from the beginning. I said I had suspected from the beginning. I said I had not been certain until I checked my receipt. I said I did not go to Patricia out of anger or to hurt anyone. I went because it was my money, and because I had spent 3 years giving things away quietly, and I was not willing to do it anymore. He looked at his wife. She was looking at the wall. Then she walked out of the room and did not come back down for the rest of the evening. My son and I talked for a long time that night. We said things we had needed to say for years. Some of it was painful, most of it was necessary. I told him I loved him. I told him I had never stopped loving him even when I was hurt and tired and invisible in my own home. I told him that his daughter had been the best thing to come out of those 3 years, and I meant that without reservation. He cried at the kitchen table. I gave him a dish towel because we are practical people, Gerald's family. They moved out the following month. My daughter-in-law did not speak to me directly again before they left. My son hugged me at the door and said he was sorry, and I believed him because I know my son, and I know the difference between sorry and the performance of sorry. They bought their house in Centerville. My granddaughter came to visit me every other Sunday, and she still does. She calls me Grandma L, and she loves the backyard with the 2 oak trees, and sometimes when she runs through the grass, I can hear the way the yard sounds when it is a home and not just a house. I kept $4.2 million, less taxes, which came to just over $2.9 million. I did not move to Kettering. I did not downsize. I had the faucet fixed, the bathroom pipes repaired, the kitchen lighting replaced. By someone I chose, in a style I liked. I gave a portion to my church. I set up a small education fund for my granddaughter in my name. The rest sits in accounts my financial advisor manages sensibly. The lamp my daughter-in-law said was depressing is still in the living room. I like it. Dorothy came over the week after everything settled, and we had dinner at my kitchen table, and I told her the whole story beginning to end. She shook her head and said, "Eleanor, do you know what the lesson is here?" I said I thought I did. She said, "Keep your receipts." I laughed for the first time in what felt like months. A real laugh, the kind that starts somewhere in the chest, the kind Gerald used to say meant everything was going to be all right. He was right. It was. It is. I still drive to the BP station on Wilmington Pike every Friday morning. I buy 2 scratch tickets. I scratch one in the car. I put the other in my purse and wait, the way Gerald taught me. The longer you wait, he always said, the longer you have hope. I never stopped believing that, not once.